And welcome to another practice session. We've been working with the idea of spirals and circles, and also brought up the notion that there's an element of straightness that comes with that. The saying from the classics is to seek the straight in the heart of the curve, and I want to look at some of that today. So let's start with the first third, and I want you to just become aware of how even as there's a lot of circular and spiral motion getting into a posture, see how that always brings you to a place where there's some directed straight energy available to complete the move. And go. So the first place I want to look at this is in the ward-offs, ward-off left and ward-off right. It was really great revelation when Maggie Newman pointed this out to us, that there's always a little bit of a forward-directed energy as we go through the moves, even as we're circular getting there. Because I had always been a little confused by, for example, coming into ward-off right, and it seems like we're just turning, and that getting to that place where ward-off right is was just part of a circle that was leading us past there. And Maggie's instruction helped me understand that, in fact, coming into this, there is a moment where it has to expand forward, and then a new gesture takes us on the next piece of the curve and continues. So that's what I want to look at first. Let's look at it in, I picked ward-off right as an example because I think it's really easy to illustrate it, but the same thing happens in ward-off left. So let's start at, like we've just done the opening move, and we'll get ourselves into it. I'll face, where will I face? I'll face this way so that I can come into the move facing the camera. And you've got Lee facing the direction that you might be facing. So we've just finished, and you're gonna turn. And step. And now notice how, as you come into this move, there's a circular spiraling quality that takes you to the front, and then a new gesture that leads you into the next movement. So let's just do that a few times. Begin. Feel yourself arrive in the final posture with expansion that leads in all directions, and then you can begin the next movement. Do it again. And go. So when you step, you're still in the corner. As you shift into it, there's this spiral round expansion outward. Feel that as the fullness of it, and then the next movement begins. So you want to have a sense that when you complete ward-off left, you're not just on your way to ward-off right. There actually is a moment that as you come into the fullness of the posture, yes, it expands in all directions, but that means it also expands forward a little bit. So let's do it again, and then we can look at moving into ward-off right. And go. Feeling that expansion, actually give a little attention to the front and then moves on. So now we'll do it, and we'll continue into ward-off right and see how it plays into the ward off right position as well. So, and go. Expanding a little forward energy. Continue. And same deal, ward off right. Rest your legs. This time I want you to go do the other thing, that when you come into ward off left, you don't feel that moment, and ward off left is just a spot along the way to turning into going to ward off right, so that you get the feeling of the difference between the two. Again, and begin. So you're circling, circling, spiraling, spiraling. Just keep going. And come into ward off right. So we'll do it that way again. You're just following that curve. You don't have a sense of something coming straight ahead at the completion of the move. We'll do it to both ward offs. And go. Spiraling round, 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 round. Next move, part of that same circle, turning back, coming into ward off right, circling, spiraling round, and just turning into ward off. Okay. So that can seem really nice and flowy, but it's lacking some of that that final fullness quality, and this idea that there are gestures, and one gesture reaches completion, and then it's time for the next one to take over. And so when you do it in the way that gets that expansion at the end and has some awareness forward, the next move is not just a continuation of this circle, but actually there's something that completes, and then the next energy starts and brings you around. So let's do it to roll back. This time we're going to perceive that forwardness at the conclusion of each of the ward offs. And it doesn't mean you have to come to a stop. Just feel the difference still flowing. Go. Coming to that fullness and next gesture. Spiraling round, something goes forward and then turns into the next move. Let's do it that way another time. There you go. And rest your legs. So that's a different feeling. You're not just following the curves, but there's seeking of the straight in the heart of it. Let's look at this. This might be a little more obvious, is if we do it from, say, white crane going into brush knee, because brush knee you can see that forward feeling, but you're still coiling and spiraling to get there. So let's take it from, and you can just start with your foot angled, since we're just taking it up in the middle of the form at white crane. And go. So left hand drops, right hand folds, left foot steps. You're still in the corner, and then you're going to spiral, but the hands come off that spiral into a forward direction. So just do that much again. And one more time. So as you're spiraling, your right hand comes off that on a tangent to come forward. So the body is doing this, and at the right moment, the arm shoots off that spiral and goes straight ahead. So what would be the difference? Now let's do it where you just shoot yourself forward because you're thinking about that forward arm going, and you're not working that spiral. So starting here. Now just think about bringing that hand forward and make the whole body just support that forward feeling. And notice where you end up. I'm a little bit not in a good 70-30 anymore. I've lost that nice balanced spiral thing. Let's do it again that way so you can get the difference. Okay, and now just drive that right hand forward. Now let's go back to letting the spiral drive the body and the arm follow its way off that, following a tangent that brings it forward. You're spiraling, but the arm comes forward. Let's do it that way again. And once more. Good feeling of the spiral and the arm, finding the right moment that it takes off and comes forward. And if you continue, we can do it coming in to play guitar, and another brush knee. And rest your legs. So one of our challenges is finding this flow, but still actually expressing the final position, and making sure that it's not just a little way station on your way to the next thing that goes around, but actually has some meaning in its conclusion, even if you don't stop there. The next place I want to look at is the punch. And first we'll look at the punch, and then we'll look at what happens after the punch, because I think this is another place where we can lose that, that sense of straight in the curve. So let's, I'll just keep facing this way and take it from where we just left off, the second brush knee. Okay, and begin. Okay, here's one. You're spiraling, and your left hand is striking out. Let's just look at that much. So, we get started. Now, the waist is turning. Everything's spiraling with it, and the left hand then follows a different trajectory. So rest your legs. So this has another one of those, everything's spiraling, but something has to come out straight. Let's do it again, and we'll continue on then. Punch. You're turning, spiraling, but your fist is going, following a straight line. So do this one again. You keep turning as your arm goes out straight. You come into the punch, your body is turning, and that sends the fist out straight. And now what happens? You turn and let go of the fist. So this moment here, rest your legs a sec. This is another place that it's really easy to perceive the move as doing this, where the punch just dissolves into a circle, so that it loses that moment of the forward, seek the straight and the curve thing. So you want to make sure that the punch actually is delivered right in front of you, and then the next gesture leads you into, and this is a big spiral here too, so it's definitely using that spiraling quality to send this arm out forward and get you ready for the next spiral that brings it back. But you don't want to combine the two. So let's do it again. then we'll combine them and feel the difference and do it the way that takes you into the good feeling. So. And go. Keep turning your body, and then turn it to deliver the punch. Notice the moment everything goes forward, and then new gesture to bring you into the corner and beyond. Again. Punches straight ahead, and then new gesture takes you to the corner. This time, let's do it where you don't give that forward feeling and just follow that circle around. So your body is turning, the punch comes forward, your body keeps turning, your fist opens up, and it turns into something in the corner. So we'll do it one more time, and then I will turn it over to Lee. And go. And this time you want to feel the punch being delivered. And then a new gesture that takes you to the corner. Okay? So there's some examples of places where you can look at the difference between the two feelings. And Lee will do some more with us.
Okay, let's look at this some more. Part of what we're doing with this is you're developing your awareness of how the energy moves through you and into somebody else. If I'm pushing with Beth and I'm going to use a ward off to push her, she's this way. So that's the direction I need it to be going. If instead I'm just kind of brushing across her surface, that's not going to take her the direction I want her to go. I need it to be out that way. And so if I'm looking at just that ward off, just coming into ward off right, when you come through here, at the last minute, is there a direction of energy that comes out across your arm, or does it all just go glancing along the arm? When you do the thing that Beth was having us do, that's the error that blends ward off right and roll back into one thing, and I've just come from ward off left, and I come up here and I just go through that. As I'm doing this, there's never anything that actually goes out. And so as you're working on this, you want to be aware of the directions that energy could be expressed all the way through there. Now this is Yang style Tai Chi Chuan, and we're told we keep the Jin internal, we keep the energy and power internal, and we don't express it outward into the air. There's certainly stuff where people do all of these explosive gestures in the solo form where they're not keeping the Jin internal, where they're expressing it into the air. Yang style Tai Chi Chuan, we don't do that. We wait until there's another person or somebody to push it into rather than doing it in the air. But you want to know which direction would it go. And there's lots of different directions. So I want to spend the rest of this session looking at those directions a little bit more. And what we'll find is it's straight. It's straight, even as you're making curves. So that section in the classics that says to seek the straight in the heart of the curve, to inside the curve find the straight, is talking about how do you store energy and how do you express it then. And the classic metaphor for this is of drawing a bow and shooting an arrow, right? So when you draw the bow, you actually bend the bow, right? You're actually bending it, and that puts potential energy in the bow. And then when you let go of the string and the arrow shoots, the arrow goes straight as the bow, the curve, finds that straight that goes out. So, the metaphor here is of drawing a bow in the body and then refiring the arrow. And when you fire the arrow, you want it to go straight. You're not trying, unless you're doing tricks or something, trying to make the arrow go some weird path, but you want it to go straight. And so that's happening all the way through these. And so you need to know which direction the straight is. There's lots of different directions it can be. So let's look at the punch again. And then I'll probably back up, and if I get this right, we'll be back at ward off left at the end when we come backwards through this. And so I want you to look at several different parts of the punch. I want you to look at this dropping hand here, this striking hand as it comes across there, and then the punch itself. So as you're doing this, understand which direction you're firing the arrow. And I'm suggesting that there are 3 arrows, at least, fired during that segment there. One with the right hand dropping, one with the left hand striking, a third with the right hand punching. So from brush knee, I'll face the same direction because... So we'll just do it a couple times and notice these various things. So go ahead. Again. The right hand. The left hand. The right hand. Once more. So one of the things about arrows is they have arrowheads, they have tips. And so there's a part of the arrow that when you fire it, you want all of that energy to be focused right on the arrowhead. Right? I have pulled a bow and made an arrow go someplace, but I certainly don't actually know anything about archery. But I'm pretty sure that if you're firing at a target or something with your arrow, you want the arrowhead to go in first. You don't want the side of the arrow to hit the target as the head goes off someplace else. And so the same thing is true in the form. There's a notion that's called the point of expressing energy, the jindian, the place where you would actually be able to issue in that moment. And those move around. So that's the place where I'd actually be touching my partner. And where I'm touching them, that's where I want all of my energy rooted in the feet, developed in the legs, directed by the waist, take shape, expressed in the hand at that specific point. And so part of what we're doing in the form is you're going to pay attention to a bunch of different points as you do this. And so, they say that you should do the form as if you had an opponent, and you should do push hands as if there's nobody else there. I'm not really crazy about the envisioning an opponent because it takes me away from what I'm actually doing in the form, and can lead me into fantasy, kung fu movie land. So I'm not crazy about that. Do it as if you had an opponent. But I think do it as if at any moment there you could meaningfully express energy at a very specific point, not just generically, but at a very specific point. So let's look at some of these. This initial downward deflection on down with this hand. As you sit back, this right hand is deflecting something. Once it gets back here, now it's protecting the groin. And when you shift forward, your knuckles are potentially expressing energy, right? So this is a little bit of a, whack with the knuckles there. But the first part, it comes out through the hand here. As you sit back, it's as if you were deflecting something down, right? Somebody comes in at me, I touch them and I deflect it down. And so my initial sitting back here, I want to be real focused on that hand there, meaningful. The arrowhead is in my palm. And then as I shift forward, the arrowhead is in my knuckles. So let's do this. We'll do our multiple times right, wrong, right, and then we'll keep going. So start out here in the brush knee. Sit back and pay attention to your right hand actually deflecting down. Back to the brush knee. Sit back, pay attention to your right hand actually deflecting down. So you're real aware at this place here, the top of the palm, the knuckles inside the palm where the fingers come in. Again, actually deflecting down. And now shift forward and direct the arrowhead to the knuckles of your right hand. So do that much again. Back, deflecting, forward, knuckles. Okay, now lose that focus and just sort of let the arm drop and let the hand swing. Okay, sit back, the arm is dropping, the other hand is rotating. Shift forward, the arms swing. Do that one again, empty. Sit back, arm deflects down. Shift forward, arms swing. So that can feel really relaxed. That can feel like you're not doing anything. And the danger of the other one is that you're going to get all, application-y. So instead of having it be applications, have it be a focus point. As I'm sitting back here, my energy is actually focused here in my hand. So that's meaningful. As I'm shifting forward here, everything is coming from the rear leg up through me into the knuckles of this hand. So that's meaningful, as opposed to the arms being meaningless, just sort of empty appendages that happen to be attached to me. They're actually places where it can be rooted in the feet, developed in the legs, directed by the waist, and forming, taking form, focused on, appearing in specific parts of the hands. So we'll do this another time, and then we'll keep going, and then we're going to pay attention to the chop with the left hand. So go ahead, sitting back, deflecting down, shifting forward, bopping with your knuckles. Shift. Feel the pinky side of the left hand all the way out there. Again. Go ahead and pay attention. Once more, and we'll do the punch this time. Meaningful gestures, focal points, rooted in the feet, developed in the legs, directed by the waist, and focused in the hands and arms. Go ahead. And punch. Okay, so when you do that chop on the way in, you're paying attention to the pinky side of the hand, this outer blade of the arm. So when I'm coming across here and doing the chop, I'm real focused from my leg all the way through to my arm, this side of the arm. And this sinking into my right foot that extends the hand is extending the hand so that that pinky side, that blade of the hand, could actually be where I express energy. As opposed to doing something else where I could come across, and now I'm not, this would be the part that would touch somebody, not this part. Or where I'm just kind of moving that arm and not really paying attention to where it goes. And then, watch what I just did there, right? So I sit back. As I move the arm across here, I'm not really paying attention to where it goes. And so look at the direction where this would be expressing energy. It's out the palm and it's over to the side. It's not this side of it at all. And then as I come forward into it, as I'm punching, look at what this arm has to do. It's like a brushing back across. So, people came up with the Tai Chi form. They studied the way that energy moves through the body, the way that we interact with the world and with each other. And they've, found a set of very functional ways to do that. And then they put that in the form. And they could have come up with different things. If I tried hard enough, I can probably come up with something where I want to be doing that. To deflect and send energy out through the back of the hand there. And I'm just talking off the top of my head. It's entirely possible that we could work through the form and find a place that's got that move. But that's not the punch. In the punch, I'm striking out and then I'm punching. I'm not coming across and coming back the other way. So you want to be focused on these things. So, and then the punch itself, right, we actually strike with the front part of the knuckles here. That's what you're doing. So there's like a long line through the arm that comes right to the front of the knuckles. That's the contact point there. So, I'm not trying to strike with the fingers because that will hurt. I'm actually striking where all the bones here line up so that it's one thing that just goes right there. So when we do the punch, you want to have the energy coming from your rear foot up through your leg, directed by the waist, and aimed right there at that part of the knuckles. So from brush knee. Meaningful, every bit as meaningful. Sit back, right hand, downward deflection. Forward, bop with the right knuckles. Step, shift. Pinky side of the left arm, the blade, and punch that part of the knuckles. Again. Okay, sit back. Shift. Shift and turn. And punch. Okay, make all your favorite errors of emptiness and meaninglessness. And you'll make your own errors. But notice what they are. Notice how they depart from this focus on the specific points of expression and the way that the curve then releases the straight. So go ahead. Bleh. So that sucks. Let's do it with focus and releasing the arrow fired straight from the curve that we've created. Go ahead. So part of the practice, part of the process of learning and improving your form is understanding that focus in only 37 moves in every instant all the way through there. And so you'll find that there's places where you're making empty gestures, where you're doing things that are just a rote patty cake folk dance that you've memorized without the benefits of folk dance, of nice music and friendly people and community and all that stuff. When we're doing the form, we really want this demanding focus all the way through it. And you'll find that there's places where you're doing a folk dance, where you've learned a complicated choreography, and you're just running through that. And so then your job is to take that apart and really look for, how is it meaningful? How can you be seeking the straight in the heart of the curve so that your energy expression is straight, vary all kinds of different directions, but it's straight. I'm coming into a single whip here, and my energy expression is across my arm there as I'm throwing somebody over my leg. That's not along the length of my arm or anything, but it's a specific thing that I do as I do that, and then a specific thing that I do as I turn the hand over. So there's lots of different directions it can go, but what you need to do is find the places where it's meaningless and empty and bring life to them. And so, you'll want to do that every little bit. Now, I've talked about one arm at a time here. And of course, both arms have stuff to do, and the legs and everything, right? So, as we're coming through here and doing this strike with the left hand, the right arm is deflecting. And so as I come across the right arm here, I'm paying attention to the forearm and then a deflection down. And so I'm not trying to do anything with the wrist at this point, but I want to feel that as I do this, my forearm could be meaningfully deflecting a punch as it comes in there. And so, at the same time that I'm striking with the blade of my left hand, I'm deflecting with the forearm of the right hand. And so, we're talking about one or the other mostly through here, but they're both in it. And so with that, let's rewind back to brush knee, because that's got some of this in it. So just do brush knee from white crane up through the second brush knee a time or two, and try to bring this awareness that we're working on of how the energy goes out in a straight line, and it's a straight line from a specific point where you'd actually be expressing it. So from white crane, and go ahead. Okay, so watch the path of the right hand. Continue. So as we go through actually folding the arm and then unfolding it for the brush knee, your focal point will move a whole bunch of different places. When I'm over here and I've brought the hand over, my focal point is in the fingertips. And this is the arm as if it was resting on a pillow of air. So it's floating in air there, and I'm paying attention to the fingertips. As I come forward, then it drops down the arm into the elbow, and as I spiral into the ground and let it come out the hand, it comes out the hand and it comes out the palm right in this place where the inner knuckles are. So you're going to go from tip of fingers through the elbow back up to heart of palm. So let's do that again and pay attention to those things. So white crane. Pinky side of the right hand comes around, right fingers, right elbow, out the right palm. Gather, open, and close. Right fingers, elbow, right palm. Now, you're not going to spend much time in the elbow. It just kind of goes through the elbow to get there. But you're going to feel it go from the fingers down into the arm and then back out through the palm. And when I'm coming back out through the palm, I really want to be focused on this part. I'm not just sort of generically touching somebody with my fingers. I'm actually connected with my hand so that I'm there. So you want to have that. So let's do it once more, and then we'll pay attention to the other arm. And go ahead. Right fingers floating on the pillow of air. Elbow out through the palm. Gather. Opening and closing. Again. Fingers down the arm, back up, out through the palm. So these points of energy, these focus points, will help you focus. So that's part of what they're about. So it's not just a mush. You actually focus on specific places. What about the other hand? So let's do that segment again. And I want you to pay attention to the left hand and what it's doing. Okay, go ahead. So the left hand does a whole bunch. The specific piece I want to look at is after the right hand has folded over, what you're doing with the left hand here as it comes forward and deflects to the side. And so you want to be aware again of this outer edge of the hand, because what this hand is doing is it's first connecting with somebody, an incoming force, and then it's deflecting that. In classic terms, you're first using ward off to connect to something, and then you're using roll back as you turn and the hand comes across your thigh. And so ward off and roll back aren't just the names of the moves that perfectly exemplify them. They are energy shapes that you can make all through the form, and that we do make all through the form. Right? So we all know ward off and roll back. And in ward off, you're expanding and connecting to something, and in roll back, you're guiding something past you by starting with going with it and then leading it with emptiness to take it past you. And so, we use the classic postures, the ones that really exemplify that, so that we can start to understand that, but they're in everything. So as I'm doing this, and this hand comes down, that was a push. Here, it's ward off as I connect to somebody, and here, it's roll back as it turns and guides somebody past me. I'm not trying to, haul them off. I connect, and then I let them just miss. So, paying attention to the left hand. And go ahead. Connect and deflect. Gather, open, and close. Turn. Left hand drops, right hand folds, left foot steps. Connect, ward off, deflect, roll back. And as you do that, feel the palm of the right hand too. Equally important. Ward off, often the focal point is in the forearm. Just like in the pushes, the focal point is inside the hand here. So, there's different places that you're going to be paying attention to. So let's look at it in good old ward off left, and we'll just do ward off left, and then we'll do another first third. So let's do ward off left a couple times. You went through this trying to figure out which direction to face. Beth will face the direction you might be facing. I will end up doing ward off towards the camera. Yeah, this is... Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So go ahead. And now notice as you come into the move, feel this connection through to your left forearm, expanding out. Do that again. As you step and shift, there's the smallest of the small place. And now you expand, and as you expand, feel yourself connecting to the left forearm. Once more. Everything comes together. Expand forward, left forearm. Now you could do lots of other things and have a shape that is roughly the same. You could have no focus. You could focus on something else. You could focus on your hand instead of the forearm, and that'll tend to distort the shape. You could focus on the elbow, and then you could have something. You could do the skating by, where I'm not actually focused on anything, I'm just turning. And so, it's not like there's only one right place to pay attention to, but having these focal points will help your form become imbued with meaning, will help you actually be there with the moves. So let's do ward off left twice more, and then we'll do a first third. And I'm not going to talk during the first third, but I want you to spend all of the time while we're doing the first third really trying to have everything be meaningful and be connected to very specific motions in your hands. So ward off left. Oh, before we do that, I'll say one more here. As I do this bit here, coming into the ball of air, it's real different if I'm trying to lift my arm, where the energy is going across the arm, or if what I'm doing is pulling back along the length of the hand. That's the one we want to be doing. So that you feel like here, it's as if somebody's holding onto your hand and you're pulling away from it. That's what brings the hand up, versus trying to lift. So, from opening posture to ward off left, go ahead. Pulling back along the length of your right arm. Compressing. Focusing on the forearm of the left arm. Again. Along the length of the right arm. Everything compresses. Expand out, forearm of the left arm. Okay, let's give it a shot. Whole first third, everything meaningful. There'll be places that aren't meaningful, so notice those. But really trying to have focus, energetic connection through the body to the gestures you're making at every instant. Go ahead. So, spend some time with your form, looking at all the pieces, trying to find any place where you're doing an empty gesture and bringing meaning to it. And don't feel like there's only one right answer. One of the sayings is that every move has 10,000 applications. And so for 10,000 applications, which just means a lot, for a lot of applications, you might have different focal points. And so as you're playing in the form, you may discover that one time your focus is one place, another time your focus is another place, and that's okay. Because when you're doing that, it's all meaningful. And the form becomes a lot more fun when it is meaningful, and it helps you not get distracted. You've got something to pay attention to while you're doing it. So, we'll see you all next time.